Turn in your student books to page 84. We're going to look at our target skill and strategy and preview the topic before we dig into our anchor text, which is Days with Frog and Toad. So let's look at target skill. Story structure. A story has different parts. Characters are the people and animals in a story. The setting is when and where a story takes place. And the plot tells about the problem the characters have and how they will solve it. You can use a story map like the one below to tell about the characters, setting, and plot. By using a graphic organizer as you read, you can describe the character setting and plot. And describing the character setting and main events that happen is going to help you to better understand and remember a story. So let's look at target strategy. Infer and predict. You can use text evidence to figure out more about the story and to think of what might happen next. Good readers are like detectives, and they think about clues to help them figure out things the author doesn't say in words. Okay? Good readers also use what they've read and figured out in a story to make a good guess or predict what might happen next. Let's preview the topic. Weather. Weather can cause problems. Storms can damage homes. Too much rain can lead to floods. The weather can also help us. Rain helps crops grow. Wind helps us fly kites. What are some other ways that weather helps us? You will find out if the wind helps Frog and Toad in The Kite. Let's turn the page. Here is our anchor text, The Kite, from Days with Frog and Toad. The author and illustrator, so he wrote the words and drew the pictures, is Arnold Lobel. He drew many animals before he came up with the Frog and Toad characters. During vacations with his family in Vermont, Mr. Lobel watched his children play with frogs and toads, and soon the animals were starring in his books. On the side of page 86, you see that graphic organizer for story structure with our characters, plot, and the setting. This is a fantasy story, something that could not happen in real life. So you're going to look for events that could not really happen and animals who talk and act like people. Let's look at our essential question. How can weather change your day? You're going to think about this question as you read, as you preview and predict and set your purpose. So pause the video now to preview, predict, and set your purpose for reading using what you know about fantasy and also your experiences to set a purpose. This story starts on page 87 and ends on page 101. Pause the video now and join me when you're done. All right. If I had to set a purpose, I know that flying a kite can be hard. So I predict that Frog and Toad will have some problems when they try to get their kite to fly. I'm going to read to find out what happens. What's your purpose for reading the story? Pause the video now and begin reading on page 89 and go to page 101. Remember to think about our essential question, how can weather change your day? When you're finished reading, please come back to the video so we can think through the text together. Let's think through the text, the kite. Who are the main characters? Describe them. Make sure you're pausing the video and having a brief discussion with your learning adult after each question. What is the setting of this story, and what do the words and pictures tell you about the meadow? What problem do Frog and Toad have? You can use pictures and sentences to help you answer that question. And what do the characters do about their problem? Analyze the text. Story structure. What problem do Frog and Toad have? What does Frog do after the kite doesn't fly the first time? What do you think Toad will say to Frog after he hears what the robins say? And what text evidence helps you to know? What events happen to Frog and Toad on pages 92 to 95? Describe the robins. Do you think Toad should listen to the robins? Why or why not? Describe what you know about Frog from his words and actions. How do you know Frog and Toad's problem is solved? Analyze the text. Genre, fantasy. How is this story different from What Can You Do? How is Toad different from Frog? How are Frog and Toad feeling now? And why do you think so? Turn to page 102 in your student book. Remember that a story has characters, a setting, and a plot, and they all work together to tell the story. Think about how you would describe Frog and Toad in detail. Okay? Remember that describing in detail will help you to remember the story better. Remember, the plot of a story usually includes a problem that the characters have. So characters are the people and animals in a story. The setting is when and where a story takes place. Where do Frog and Toad try to fly their kite? Is it day or night? The plot is the important events. Think about Frog and Toad's problem. How do they solve it? You can use a story map like this one to list the parts of the story. So a story map helps us to think about the important parts of a story. We could list Frog, Toad, and 3 robins under characters and describe them. The story takes place in a meadow. That's the setting. What does it look like? And what is the weather like? Is it day or night? So we can describe the weather, or the meadow, under setting. And then under plot, we can describe the main events, telling about Frog and Toad's problem and how it was solved. Our genre was fantasy. Think about the people in What Can You Do from lesson 27. How are they different from the characters in The Kite? The Kite is a fantasy, and the story's events couldn't happen in real life. In this story, Frog and Toad talk to each other and do things that people would do. How would a real frog or toad act? Now it's your turn to return to the essential question, how can weather change your day? You're going to answer that question using the how does the weather change Frog and Toad's day and how is the setting important to what happens to help you to describe and give your answer using text evidence like words and pictures. Then you're going to have a brief discussion about these 3 conversation questions, and then you're going to write a response. You're going to write sentences to describe how Frog and Toad are alike and how they're different. You can use words and pictures from the story for ideas. Your writing tip is that you can use like and to tell how things are alike. Use not and but to tell how things are different.